Never imagined. The night my sister got engaged would be the night I finally understood how small my family had learned to see me. Not because someone shouted at me, not because anyone openly insulted me. It was quieter than that. Doggers, the kind of humiliation that hides behind laughter, polite smiles, and the phrase, "I was just joking." The kind that settles into your chest long after the music fades, leaving you unsure whether you're even allowed to feel hurt. Nouns. The backyard behind my parents' house looked perfect that evening, almost unnervingly so. Now, string lights were stretched across the space in careful, symmetrical lines, glowing softly against the darkening sky. White flowers sat in clear glass vases, identical in height and spacing, like they'd been measured twice before being placed. Champagne rested in silver buckets, chilled to the exact temperature that made people feel important the moment they took a sip. Everything was curated, controlled, predictable, too. It was my sister's engagement party. Her name is Adeline, and attention has always followed her effortlessly. Not because she demanded it, not because she tried to take it from anyone else, but because every room we ever walked into seemed to lean toward her on its own. I arrived early. I always arrive early. Being early means you can help. Helping means you're useful. And being useful, in my family, means no one asks you to take up space. Before I could even set my bag down, my mother placed a stack of folded napkins in my arms and nodded toward the drinks table. "Can you put these over there?" she said, already turning away. No pause, no eye contact, no question mark. Nod. I nodded. I always nod, by the time. Guests began arriving. I'd already refilled the ice twice, wiped down a counter no one had touched, and lined up the glasses so their rims matched perfectly. My hands moved automatically, like my body had memorized this role years ago. Quiet, reliable, background, tended. Then Adeline arrived. She stepped out of the car glowing, her engagement ring catching the string lights instantly. Conversations paused, heads turned, compliments rushed in before she even reached the gate. People smiled wider when she spoke, leaned closer when she laughed, like the moment itself had adjusted to accommodate her. Tom, her fiancé, Rowan, followed a step behind her, calm, observant. The kind of man who didn't speak much but somehow always seemed aware of everything happening around him. He shook hands, thanked people, made small talk with the ease of someone who understood social gravity. My parents looked at them like they were watching something they'd built themselves. I stood near the edge of the crowd with a glass of champagne I hadn't touched, watching a story I had watched my entire life repeat itself. Adeline talked. Everyone listened. My family loves labels. Simple ones. Comfortable ones. The kind you can explain in one sentence so no one asks questions that might make things complicated. Adeline was the impressive one, the charismatic one. The daughter people bragged about to neighbors, coworkers, and strangers at grocery stores. And me? Oh, she works at the courthouse. Never. That sentence followed me everywhere. Holidays, birthdays, phone calls from relatives who barely remembered my face but felt confident summarizing my life. "So, you're still doing admin work?" they'd ask, smiling like they were being kind. "Yeah," I'd say. "Still there." And the conversation would drift away. They never saw the late nights. The files stacked neatly on my desk, the decisions that stayed with me long after I came home. Not because I lied because I didn't, but because explaining myself made people uncomfortable. Especially Adeline. At some point, I realized my success didn't land the way hers did. It didn't bring applause. It brought imbalance. It shifted the room. Doc. It tightened her smile in ways she never acknowledged. Douglas. So I softened my words, rounded the edges, let them believe the smaller version of me. Never. It kept the peace. At home, the pattern never changed. Adeline spoke, and everyone leaned in. My parents asked questions, waited for answers, nodded, laughed, celebrated. When I spoke, forks scraped plates. Someone reached for more wine. A side conversation started at the other end of the table. Now, it wasn't cruelty. It was habit, denicism. There was only one person who ever noticed. My cousin Lena. Lena had always been the quiet observer in our family, the one who watched the room instead of performing for it. She noticed the late hours, the way my phone buzzed at odd times, the way I went quiet when someone joked about my admin job. Daughters. Sometimes under the table, she'd squeeze my hand once, a small reminder that I wasn't invisible everywhere. D. By the time the engagement party came around, I already knew the script. Arrive early. Help quietly. Smile when introduced. Leave before anyone noticed I was gone. I didn't expect respect. I didn't expect curiosity. Nines. What I didn't expect was to be turned into a punchline. Adeline finally noticed me halfway through the evening. She waved me over like she was calling a server. "Come here," she said, arm already reaching around my shoulder, smile wide enough for cameras. "I don't think everyone's met my sister," she announced. "This is Iris." Nods. A few polite nods followed. Mild interest. "She works at the courthouse," Adeline added, like she was reading from a script everyone already knew. "Pace it." Then she laughed. "She's just admin," she said. "Keeps things organized, answers phones. You know how it is." Not. Someone chuckled. Glass clinked. Ecton. My chest tightened. Heat rose into my throat. This wasn't new. This was just louder. 9. I felt the familiar instinct kick in to smile, to nod, to let it pass, to make myself smaller so the moment could stay comfortable for everyone else. Pyres it. But Rowan didn't laugh. Minute. He was watching me, not casually, not politely. At Cantu, really watching me. Non. His smile faded just slightly, like something in his memory didn't line up with the story he'd been handed. Nod. His eyes moved over my face with quiet concentration, as if he were trying to place me somewhere he hadn't expected to see me. Hesitation didn't belong in Adeline's perfect night. Dinner was announced. Chairs scraped softly against the stone patio. Plates were carried out. Wine was poured and topped off again. It. The string lights hummed overhead like nothing had happened. I took my seat near the end of the long table, exactly where I was expected to be. Forks scraped against ceramic. Someone laughed too loudly at nothing. Downza. Someone wiped a drop of wine from the tablecloth, like it mattered more than the tension beneath the conversation. Day. I sat quietly, hands folded, heart steady in a way that surprised me. Day. Because somewhere deep in my chest, a quiet understanding had settled in. Taya. A truth I had been hiding for years was running out of places to hide. Doug. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to protect it anymore. Dinner. Began the way family dinners always do, food first. Feelings last. Plates were passed down the table. Silverware clinked softly. Forks scraped against ceramic in uneven rhythms. Someone reached for the breadbasket. Day. Someone else topped off a glass of wine as if keeping it full might keep the moment comfortable. I ate slowly, more out of habit than hunger. Adeline glowed at the center of the table, collecting attention like it was oxygen. Told. She retold the proposal story where Rowan stood, what he said, how surprised she was even though everyone already knew she wouldn't be. Nod. My parents leaned in, nodding at the right moments, smiling with a pride that felt automatic. I watched from the end of the table, a quiet presence in the background of her celebration. Docs. Then Adeline lifted her glass. Dace, I just want to say how grateful I am, she said warmly. Tonight is perfect. Tay. A murmur of agreement followed. Day. She turned toward Rowan, resting her hand lightly on his arm. And I'm especially grateful to be marrying someone who actually argues important cases, she laughed. Someone who matters. Nines. A few people chuckled. Dame. She paused just long enough for the room to lean in. And, well, she added, eyes sliding toward me, some people answer phones. Nowers. Her gaze settled fully on me. Right, Iris? Dissin. The laugh that followed was soft, polite, safe. Dollars. The kind of laugh that doesn't demand a response. Day. The familiar instinct rose immediately to smile, to nod, to let it pass. To make myself smaller so the night could continue exactly as planned. I lowered my eyes toward my plate, nouns claused. Then Rowan spoke. Wait. 9. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut cleanly through the noise. The table. Quieted, not completely, but enough for people to notice something had shifted. Rowan turned fully in his chair to face me. Iris, he said slowly, carefully, what exactly do you do at the courthouse? Dollars. The question landed wrong, not offensive, not aggressive, just misplaced. Now, it didn't fit the story everyone had already agreed on. The laughter stopped. Nowers. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Wine glasses hovered midair. Someone cleared their throat, then seemed to realize how loud it sounded. Every eye turned toward me. Time. For a moment I didn't answer, never place. I stared at my hands resting on the table, noticing details I'd never paid attention to before the faint scratch in the wood beneath my fingertips, the cool curve of the glass against my thumb. The hum of the string lights overhead seemed louder now, like the world had turned everything else down just to listen. In that silence, years rushed in. Every holiday, where I'd been asked to help instead of sit. 9. Every dinner where my work had been reduced to a single word that made people comfortable. Time. Every time I stayed quiet because speaking felt heavier than swallowing the moment. Tea. I realized something then. Nights I hadn't been protecting my family by staying silent. 9. I had been protecting the version of me they preferred. Across from me, Adeline's smile tightened, her jaw set, eyes sharpening like she could sense the shift even if she didn't understand it yet. My mother stared at her plate, suddenly very interested in the pattern along the rim. Do-off. My father lifted his glass, hesitated, then set it down without taking a sip. Rowan waited, not impatient, not mocking, just waiting. Deej. The old instinct begged me to soften it, to say something vague, something harmless, something that would let the evening continue exactly as planned. Diesels. But another feeling rose instead. Calm, steady, clear. Tie. I set my glass down, dogging. The sound was small, barely a tap, but in the stillness it sounded impossibly loud. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I said one word, judge. Nothing happened. For a heartbeat. Nothing happened. Doff. Then everything did. Forks. Froze midair. Conversation died mid-breath. Even the string lights seemed to hum louder in the sudden quiet. My mother's face drained of color so quickly it startled me. Her lips parted as if she were searching for a sentence she'd never rehearsed, then closed again. No. My father blinked hard, his grip tightening around his glass before he set it down carefully, as though it might shatter if he wasn't gentle. Adeline laughed. Dated. The sound was sharp, brittle, "Oh my God," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Very funny." I didn't look at her. Rowan hadn't laughed. No'd. He leaned back slowly in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made the air between us feel heavier. Nod. His brow furrowed, not in confusion but recognition, like someone piecing together a memory they hadn't known was important. "Judge," he repeated quietly. The words sounded different coming from him, less like a joke, more like a realization. Dade. Then his eyes widened just slightly. "Iris Hale," he said slowly. "Downtown courthouse." No one breathed. "You presided over my case last year," he continued. "The civil dispute. I stood in front of you more than once." Docs. The silence deepened, thick and undeniable. Adeline's smile collapsed. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, turning toward him. "She works admin. She answers phones. You've met her." Rowan didn't look at her. "I know what admin work looks like," he said calmly. "And I know what a judge looks like." Turned back to me. "You were fair," he added. "Direct. You didn't perform. You listened." 9. Under the table, Lena squeezed my hand once. Not encouragement, not celebration, just presence. The story my family had been telling themselves for years was unraveling, thread by thread, and there was no way to stitch it back together. "You're a judge?" my father finally asked, disbelief thick in his voice. 3 years, I replied. My mother shook her head slowly. "Why didn't you tell us?" she whispered. "I did," I said quietly. "At the beginning." No one asked after. Adeline pushed her chair back slightly. "You embarrassed me," she snapped. "You waited until my engagement party to do this." "I answered a question," I said calmly. "After you mocked me," her eyes flashed. "You think you're better than me now?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "I stopped pretending to be less." The room broke then, not loudly. Completely. Rowan stood, his expression tight. "You never let her speak," he said to Adeline, voice low but unmistakably firm. Day. That sentence landed harder than anything I could have said. Adeline looked around and realized the orbit had shifted. The attention she always commanded wasn't hers anymore. No one laughed, no one defended her. Even. My parents sat frozen, caught between the daughter they'd always praised and the one they'd never truly seen. Adeline turned and walked inside. Noun. Her heels struck the floor like punctuation marks at the end of a sentence. I left early, not angry, not ashamed, just tired. Next morning, sunlight filtered through my blinds, and for the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar. Relief, not victory. Relief. Doubts. In the days that followed, my phone filled with messages, apologies, questions, long explanations that arrived years too late. I read some. I ignored others. Adeline showed up at my door a week later. "I was scared," she admitted, voice smaller than I'd ever heard it, "of being ordinary." "I was never competing," I told her. "I just wanted to exist without shrinking." Fixed it. We didn't fix everything, but something shifted. My parents started asking questions and then actually waiting for answers. Lena smiled at me across dinner tables like she'd been waiting years for me to stop disappearing. And I learned something I wish I'd understood sooner. Silence isn't kindness. Silence teaches people how small they're allowed to make you. You don't owe anyone a smaller version of yourself just to keep the peace. Hours. If you've ever sat at a table where your life was reduced to a label that made others comfortable, you already know how heavy silence can be. Noun. And if this story feels familiar, you're not alone. Just look at how many people quietly recognize themselves in moments like this. Telluses. Some people will hear this and think, "That's never happened to me." Others will feel it in their chest. Numbers. If you're the second person, you don't need to explain yourself. Sometimes the simplest way to say, "I understand," is just a number, day. And whichever number you choose, you'll know exactly why you chose it. Docs, because being seen doesn't always come with applause. Deaf did. Sometimes it comes the moment you stop letting them make you small.